Another video, guys, about one of the most important things that you can focus on. There's a million things you can read 1,000 books and focus on all kinds of little developing skills here and there and becoming better at self-discipline, all of that. But if you can find the few things in life that you can focus on and become better at that will make everything else change, then you have some power now. Instead of scrambling to the east and to west and everywhere to try and improve stuff, you focus on the core, the engine, the nucleus of what you want to make happen. And this is one of those nucleuses, right? And it's all about how you deal with the world. Just imagine that you're in a poor situation, in a bad situation, you're stressed or you're fearful. How do you make decisions in that state? Not so good, right? You make the poorest decision of all if you're frustrated, if you're angry, if you are stressed, because they come from a lower part of the brain. What actually happens is that we human beings have basically three parts of the brain. The reptile brain, it's a robot, a biological robot. Then we have the mammal brain, you could call it, or the monkey brain, as I like to call it, which is basically mammals, right? And then we have the frontal lobes, which are uniquely human, which are analytical and are able to influence the two other layers, luckily enough. And the more afraid you get, the more stressed you get, the more frustrated you get, the more depressed you get, the lower your level of intelligence. Simply because, not because you actually become less intelligent, but because you crawl down into the lower parts of the brain that are survival. If you go all the way down to the reptile brain, that is all about survival, about eating and surviving. You know, that's it. It's a robot. It's a mechanism. Then we got the midsection of the brain, which is also a mechanism, but much more complex, the mammal part of the brain. And if you're there, you're also focused on survival, just on a higher, more complex level. But if you make decisions with that part of the brain, which means when you are influenced by negative emotions or emotions that doesn't feel good, then you're going to make poor decisions. And here's why. An emotion is not just a feeling in the body. It also clouds the way you look at the world. If you feel victimized, if you feel that the world is against you, then you see the world as being against you, even though it's not, obviously, for other people around you. But you see it that way, and you feel it that way. You have facial expressions that reflect that, and other people want to help you if you're a child, right? Parents come to say, oh, what's wrong? Little one, right? But when you're 45 or 35 or whatever, 25, not so much. People don't come right. They might, feel sorry for you for a day or two, but then they grow tired of you. Will you freaking do something about your situation, right? But we still use that even though we're adults, and it doesn't work. But it's a strategy of trying to get a result through others who helps you. That's what it is. And the strategy looks as a worldview of the world being a place that's against you. You feel victimized or other people against you. And you have a physical sensation in the body. And you see yourself as weak. That all follows. It's a strategy. It's an identity that happens like that. If you start making decisions in that state, they'll be influenced by that illusory look on the world, right? And yourself, which is not aligned with how the world really is. So you'll be acting out a decision that comes from a fantasy, which is what the emotion is. If you're faced with a lion right there and you go, ah, that's functional. Now you can call for help, right? Now it works. All that. The world is an amazingly dangerous place and I'm weak and I cannot help myself. So I go, and people come rushing. But here in this complex reality, not so much, right? If you get angry, your computer doesn't work, so you get frustrated, you get angry, then how's that going to work? Who's reacting there? The monkey is. Right? That's what happens. See, if you want to make the best of this life, if you want to make the right decisions that follows to right action that then leads to great results, what you need to do is make decisions with the same part of the brain that created this complex world. You can go be a caveman and go hunt animals and fight the neighboring tribe. And all your monkey-style solutions and emotions will work perfectly in that environment. But now you're in a much more complex culture and reality, technology, work life, everything has changed. What created that? The frontal lobes, the uniquely human part of the brain. The reason why your head is so high compared to monkeys, right? That's what created this reality. And the way to deal with this reality is to use the very same part of the brain that created this, right? So if you sink down into the monkey and reptile levels of the brain and you make decisions from there, you're basically acting out the life of a caveman in this reality. And that doesn't work. So how do we make sure we stay there, right? The first thing is exercise. If you want to have access to all your resources, you don't want to have a body that feels sluggish and threatened and even if you're hungry or you ate too much sugar, whatever, as soon as it's out of balance, your mind is out of balance because your emotions are out of balance. As soon as your body is compromised in any way, the whole process in the brain goes from the intelligent frontal lobes to the mammal part of the brain, the lower, because now we're dealing with an emergency, certainly, or maybe an emergency. If a car comes towards you, you jump to the sidewalk immediately, and that's the reptile brain. It's much more short term than the next level. But if you sink down there, you make those decisions, then suddenly you make very poor decisions. We can't have that. So you need to, that's the first thing that influences every other part of your life, because it influences your decision-making process and your emotions. And that is exercising and eating good food, right? And becoming really, learning more about it every day. So you can be and learning more about yourself by testing and trying out different things. What do I need to eat? I know if I eat a big meal in the middle of the day, I'll be tired in the afternoon and I'll make poor decisions because suddenly my body says, we want to sleep. And my mind says, no, I want to make decisions and produce, right? Doesn't go together. So I don't do that anymore, right? I know if I eat a lot of sugar, I get my mood just gradually grows worse and worse over the days, and I want to eat more sugar. So I just don't eat that. I find, alternatives. And sometimes I eat sugar anyway on special days, right? Because it tastes amazingly, right? But that's how you want to think. You want to make sure that your body is in the right state. And that's the most important thing in your life because it controls everything. Your mood, your happiness, everything. It's not done with that. But that's where it starts. That's how to stay resourceful. And then you want to make sure that you get very conscious about how you look at the world all the time because everything snowballs, right? If you have one thought and you don't question it about, it's probably because they don't want me. Or they don't want me here. Some thought like that, negative thought, like away from thought or a victim thought or whatever. If you just let it stay there, it's going to grow on you. And you're going to think the next thought and the next. And suddenly your emotions react because you start living in a world where stuff is like that. You start believing what you think, right? And then suddenly, once the emotions are there, your body's changed, like when you're sluggish and eating too much sugar. And then your thinking is influenced by that. And then here we go. And suddenly your frontal lobes are out of the question. We're all down here and we're making really bad decisions because we're making them from a world perspective that is simply not true. They are not after you. They do want you here. Something else was the matter, right? So I can only recommend that you really focus on this thing by staying resourceful. And if you're not resourceful, stay out of making decisions. Stay out of it. Don't make decisions. Well, then I'll just, I'll never do this, right? How well is that of a decision, right? If they don't want it, then that's the kind of decisions we make. Well, I'll just walk from home and then I'll just die, right? Then how happy will they be when they see me, committing suicide? Then, that's the decisions of a child, which is, a child is basically excused when it comes to making decisions out of emotions. But that's what it is to become an adult human being to a greater and greater extent, is simply to become very good at staying resourceful more of the time and to make decisions in that state instead of a lower state. I hope this was valuable to you. Remember to subscribe. And if you have any comments, please put them down here. Any questions, anything you want to say to this? You say, oh, that's not true, Claus. Or any experiences you have with this that pops up in your mind, just to help the other people who's watching this video in the future and help me create the next videos based on the stuff that goes on out there. So hope to see you and subscribe and all of that. Then see you.